Today we have on the show my good friend and huge inspiration to me, Leslie Alejandro, photographer, director, owner of Alejandro Films, and she's married to the very sexy Kevin Alejandro. If you watch Lucifer, he's on the show with Lucifer, and he also directs that show.
He does. This is going to be his third time. Hi, Cece.
So this is Leslie. We were just talking about so our backgrounds are more behind the scenes. We're usually not in front of the camera talking. So we were a little awkward coming in here still. Yes. Still getting used to this, getting filmed.
Yes.
All right. So this podcast is about dating and relationships. And you, out of your friend group, I feel like you guys were the first ones that were married or in at least in a healthy relationship before any of us. And you were always the one setting a great example and giving us advice when we were dating, like in our 20s, early 30s, that whole shit show. Like you always had it down. Like you're very good with your boundaries. I feel like you've always been, well, since I've known you.
I learned it though, honestly, probably within a couple of years before I met Kevin, though. I didn't have him before because I'm not confrontational. I did want to be in love, but I always ended up with the bad, wrong boys. I had that whole thing. And then there was a time that I finally realized not only the respect I needed to give myself because I was letting people take advantage of me, but also at the same time, knowing and understanding my worth. That meant everything. Yeah.
And how long was that journey of learning your self-worth before you met Kevin?
I mean, right before.
It's funny, but it happens fast once it clicks.
Yeah.
Right? It happens fast.
Absolutely. And you know, it was a hard one because I never thought that I would ever find I knew the way that I loved. And I loved hard, I love strong, I love fast. That's just how I am. And I sat with, hearing everyone's idea of what they thought was better for me, and it just didn't click. Everyone's different, And I realized then I have to respect those things about how I want to do it. If I want to fall hard and fast, then I want to fall hard and fast. And so with that, though, obviously there comes a risk, like a huge risk, right? And Kevin was actually the first time that I practiced those boundaries in a relationship. I started to practice it a lot just with meeting men and dating because I dated a lot. And I was mostly single. So prior to meeting him, the longest relationship I had was not even a year and a half, and I was 20 years old. And I met Kevin almost 29 years old.
Okay.
So, which for me back then I thought was so late, but I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't late at all, And when I met him, though, there was definitely things that, issues that came up, and I realized that I didn't want, a lot of the times people, especially women, they feel that if they let a lot of things go, or if they do set their boundaries with somebody that wants to cross those boundaries, that they're going to risk a chance of losing them. And I didn't want to approach and go in this relationship with those ideals. So as soon as something I was not okay with or cool with, I put it out there, and then it was up to him to either meet me there or move on. And so, and he met me there, and it was great.
That feels nice.
But we're going to celebrate 18 years together in November. And 18 years later, we still have to set those boundaries for each other because I'm, close to 20 years older. I went through my end of my 20s, 30s, and now I'm hitting 50s. I'm 46 now, so those boundaries are going to change. My attitude in life has changed. The things that I hold valuable have changed. My priorities have changed, and so is his. So we always have to check in with each other still to see where we are with those, and just can't always assume that the other person knows what the other one is thinking, because it doesn't matter. As much as we know ourselves, we can never assume that we know each other entirely for the rest of our lives because it's a ridiculous concept. Unless you're just complicit to things and unless you just settle and you're okay with having that kind of life, you know.
Right. No, I totally get it. And I think the assumptions and who was it who said, is it Esther? I think it was Esther Perel who said, as soon as you collapse, like thinking that you know everything about someone, people don't like that. You know, because people are always changing. So if you approach it with curiosity, because people do change, and especially someone like you who you're into personal growth and you're used to bettering yourself. So that also, there's only going to be change with that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
so let's take it back before you met Kevin to your relationship before Kevin, or there was a guy before Kevin where you were devastated that it didn't work out.
Yes, absolutely. And the funny thing is the cycle of how we got together. Kevin was the third person, I'll tell you what it was, that I actually did it with, and it just happened that it stuck. Yes, we fell in love fast. We fell in love hard. I let him come stay with me. I've always been independent. I've always been an independent person. I've always been into wanting a career that was going to, that I can be independent, you know, for myself or whatnot. And so I had my own place that I was living in already by myself for a few years. This guy we met, like I said, it happened really super fast. He ended up losing his job. I ended up taking care of him. This is the second time that something like this happened. Leslie doesn't learn her lesson all the time. And I found out later he had another girlfriend in another state the entire time. Turns out, though, me and his now ex-girlfriend are friends now because we had stuff to talk about. His mother loved me. That when she came to visit from Venezuela, and found out that Kevin and I were getting married, she gave us a wedding gift. It was so sweet. I know.
That's nice.
Very, very sweet. So, yeah, that was that story.
Okay, so that was that guy.
Yes.
And then, and then when you met Kevin,
Yes.
Kevin was an aspiring actor at this time.
Yes.
And you were working retail and multiple jobs.
Yes,
at this time.
I was working retail, and then also I was a musician at the time. So my band was signed with DreamWorks, so we were just waiting to tour. This is when DreamWorks had a music division back in the early 2000s, and so that's where I had to give Kevin money because he lived in the valley with 3 other boys in a 2-bedroom apartment.
So you were supporting him at this time.
Yes, when we first met, I would give him gas money to come visit me, and then he just ultimately ended up just moving with me right away. Pretty much. It wasn't official till a couple months later, but he was pretty much living with me already. Yeah, we didn't get together when we first met for a few months, but when we did, within a month, he asked me to marry him.
Hard and fast.
Yeah, hard and fast. Hard and fast, yes.
I love that. And I mean, it's different now because Kevin makes very good money now. Okay, Kevin's the breadwinner right now, right?
Yes, he is. I will, as much as I've always wanted to be the rock star, I will never make as much money as Kevin.
Don't say that.
I know, maybe so. It could
You guys have
happen.
films coming out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
But yes, he is. I'm so proud of him, and this is what he's always wanted to do, and he's pursuing it. And so yes, super proud of him.
That's awesome. And then when you were supporting Kevin, were any of your friends, did they say things like, Leslie, like, no?
100%.
Because they probably have seen your previous patterns of
100%.
doing that.
Especially my best friend Arson.
Yes.
who you know.
Yes.
Yes. When he found out that we were engaged, he basically moved to New York, and then I met Kevin.
Okay.
Which kind of needed to happen because we were just naughty together, and for me to be in a relationship, probably we shouldn't have been together at the same time. So, he did find out, and his exact words were, "You're marrying an actor. Are you crazy? Do you want to be poor for the rest of your life?"
That is something you would say.
And yes, he always says, and now him and Kevin, they love each other so much, and he always says he eats his words. My parents, they loved him from the beginning, which was crazy too, because Asian parents usually don't like, men who are in creative
who aren't making money.
who are not making any money, I kind of forced Kevin to get a job because he was just working as a heater and air conditioning guy and he would only do these jobs if he had to help pay with rent or something. And finally I was like, maybe you need something a little steady just for right now. And he found a job working as a gelato slinger and what are they called, the coffee makers?
A barista.
Barista. Okay. At on a shop on Abbot Kinney, long time ago, called Massimo's.
Oh my gosh.
And so the two owners were these two Japanese women who lived in Italy for over 30 years, spoke perfect Italian, but spoke English with thick Japanese accents, which just made it even cuter. They loved him so much, believed him so much, and let him not only take time off when he had to go to auditions, but they fronted him with a proper ring for me when, like engagement ring, when it came time to actually giving me something, because we were unofficially engaged for a year before he proposed in front of my family and things like that. And then we got married a couple months later. But yeah, they believed in him. And so that was easy for him to, kind of be able to pursue acting still and then actually make a little bit of money. I mean, he didn't really make any money, but for the gelato place, he was making like minimum wage and $20 a day or something like that. But then he got on Young and the Restless, and he quit that job, and that was in 2004.
Okay.
And he's only been acting ever since. And we're so lucky. That's not wood.
Yeah. Those are wood. Yes. And since then, he's had very consistent work.
Yes.
Since then.
Yes. We've been so lucky. I mean, it still was a rise, and it was still a figuring out and a, balancing act with us and raising a family. We always called it's always feast or famine. Luckily, he's been on the show now for he's going into season 6. So we've been extremely lucky. So that has given us, him being on the show has not only given him, some good juice in the industry, but also helped him become a director on top of it. And then we started our production company last year. So that really, really allowed us to do this because of the success of this show.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're number one. They just released last Friday, the new season, and they were number one in the world.
Oh my God. Well, I saw when I pull up Netflix, it's Lucifer's at number one.
So they got to number one in the US within the day, and then within a few days they were number one in the world, which is crazy, so crazy. But I'm happy for all of them. They all work
well
so
deserved.
hard.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your relationship dynamic, what has always impressed me is your community. Not just your marriage with Kevin, but you guys have built a community of friends who are like ride or die friends, like so supportive.
Yeah.
They support you guys support them. And was it always like this in the beginning? Did you always have a tight-knit community? Okay.
No. We did the thing that a lot of couples that young did, and we ignored our friends for a year and a half. I learned a lot being in this relationship, of not just about myself, because I told you I started that growth. I started the growth period probably in my self-aware growth in probably my mid-20s, and came to a good space to be able to be in a healthy relationship by the time that I'd met Kevin. But there was still a lot I was learning on the way. And, I used to be very complicit about a lot of things, including my ethnicity and my culture, including my femininity and being a woman. I always was the one that thought I was, cool enough that I could hang out with the boys, and I was a guy's girl, and I didn't trust girls because they were catty and blah, blah. And then I got pregnant. Like, we had friends and we partied, and we had that dynamic at first. We kind of were like the party couple. So we were partying with the same friends that you mentioned. And it was kind of like a big party dynamic. And then I got pregnant, and I realized I didn't really have girlfriends like that. I had girls that I've always been the person that had friends from different cliques, like not as a whole. And, from different areas or different aspects of my life, I had those kind of girlfriends, And then I got pregnant, and the best friend I talked to about, that I just told you about earlier, he was kind of the only one that was there for me throughout my pregnancy, and he's gay, and he thought my pregnancy was disgusting. I was like, you don't get it. No, but he loved me no matter what. But I didn't have that one that just like understood being what it was like to be a woman and what you go through. And from there it started. And when I had the baby, that community showed up. And so that's when it kind of, we felt just how strong everybody really, really was within ourselves. And I really believe that without that community or my family, I wouldn't have been able to raise Kaden because, like I said, like honestly, we were not ready. We had been married for a few years already when I got pregnant. He was not planned. I freaked out. Our friends freaked out because we were the party couple and were like, how are you going to keep it alive? And we... and
he's still alive, by the way.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Right.
and thriving. So yeah, I really owe it to everybody who helped us and was there to help raise him and be around. But we also went into it being, bringing him into our life and not stopping our life for him. That was like a big thing that we wanted to make sure. We were just so in love with each other and our dynamic that literally the day that I had to be induced because he was so late. We sat on the sofa and we cried because we had to kind of mourn the life that we just had together for all these years. And now we knew that another dynamic was going to come in and what that was going to look like,
Yeah, and I love what that looks like because Kaden is one of the most well-adjusted kids I've ever met.
He's a good kid. We got lucky. I mean, I know everyone's like, oh, it's your parenting too, but it has a lot to. We know this. People are born with personalities, and we got lucky that I was able to tolerate his, because I'm an impatient person. That's why I didn't want to have a second one because he was so great. And they always say that one's one way, the other one's going to be the opposite.
They're never the same.
Never. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think I could deal with that. So no, we got so lucky. He is such a really good kid. But we were the first ones to have a kid. So we brought him to the bars and the restaurants.
Yeah. No, you're like,
people
there was no separation.
No, people would walk in and they're like, it doesn't even look like you have a kid in here. And we're like, no, open the drawer and it's all his toys. I'm like, but I don't need to have, make it look like, McDonald's playground, in order to make this kid happy. And he was such a happy kid, So yeah, but someone told us that one of my girlfriends, Jen Rasico, when she was pregnant, she had 2 kids before I did. And when I was pregnant, she gave me advice that she said someone gave her. And it was that no matter what, your marriage comes first. The love for that child is going to come natural. That natural love is not the kind of love that you guys have for each other. And you will always have to work on each other to be strong enough for that child, So we really took that into consideration. I mean, to the point that, it's a running joke with Kaden and Kevin that Kaden's always asked who you love more, me or mom. He's like, your mom. Of course, your mom. And Kaden's like, just rolls his eyes, I mean, he knows what he means.
He knows he's loved.
Oh, he knows he's loved. Like, he needs to chill out on how much he knows sometimes.
Well, because you were saying that it was important for you to teach him confidence because it's easier to teach confidence, and if they get egotistical or cocky, then they could tone it down.
Yes.
But if it's the other way around,
so hard.
It's so hard to reverse that. Like with our parents' generation, the way they parented us, my mom, she's like, "You're going to therapy? Like, why do you need to go to therapy?" And I just want to say, like, because of the way you raised me.
Because of you. What do you think? I did say that because he is naturally confident, and I'm grateful for that and trying to teach him how to be humble. I would rather do than try to teach him how to have confidence because it's so hard. And he does. He gets hard on himself a lot, though, because things come so easy for him. So when he actually has to work for things and it doesn't come naturally and he has to actually work at it, he gets so frustrated. And I knew about that aspect of kids like him, and trying to nurture him to kind of like ease him into those frustrations and teach him just to keep working hard. That's not an easy thing too, But I am grateful for that because our parents didn't teach us. I know I just posted recently. I don't know if you saw on my story, and it was a Latino, like it said, Hispanic families will find your worst insecurity and give you that as a nickname. I was like, Filipinos too.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but that's our families, right?
Yeah, like little fatty or whatever. Yeah,
Kevin and his family called him gordo, which means fat, And I'm like, that is so mean. Or Dumbo because he had ears or whatever, and they just call him, hey, Dumbo. And you're just like, I know, it's so bad, so bad.
Oh, okay. So let's talk more about your friend dynamic. So with your friends, you've had some long-term friends that you're still friends with. Many of them.
Yeah.
You keep them around. But there's also been some that you've grown apart from.
Yeah.
And so with those, I mean, what's always impressed me about you is how you're very generous and you're very open. Like you give people a chance.
100%.
But when someone crosses your boundary or your line, that you're very clear on that line. And I feel like it takes a lot for you.
It does.
To like let go of someone because you're very fair.
Yeah.
You're very reasonable.
Yeah.
But I think it's with a lot of strong independent women, what I find is they cut off too fast.
Right.
But you are always you give people a chance. You're very compassionate.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to
understanding.
think so. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the friendships that where you grew apart, what happened? Is it just a difference of values? You changed through the years?
I think it's a bit of everything. I'll be honest. Prior to, there's definitely been. Well, there was one. I used to be a big ghoster. Mm-hmm. I told you I was not confrontational. I was not confrontational. Of course, we just want to keep blaming our parents, but you don't talk through your feelings with someone you're not in a relationship in, or even in general, I just don't. Sometimes Kevin needs, has to get things out of me because I try to work a lot of stuff out in my head by myself, But that, even to get to that point, really, really takes a lot. And it's funny, I just talked about it today with another girlfriend of mine, and I was telling her that I don't want to walk around this life being skeptical of everyone. That's not how I want to live. I don't want to live like people are out to get me or out to bring me down. That's not in my vocabulary or kind of in my phrasing that I say things like that. Like everyone's trying to, beat me down. Like I don't feel that way about people or about things. Because I won't let anybody. And then,
No. Don't try.
No. and then B, because I really inherently want to believe that people are good and people try and people are not necessarily evil. Now, do people have different values, how they go about things, how they do things and whatnot? Yeah, of course. And so I want to come in to the people, into relationships with the people that I meet a little bit more trusting. And I'll be that way until they prove me wrong. Kevin, on the other hand, he just doesn't trust anybody. So it takes a lot for him to open up to anybody or be cool with anybody or accept people into his life or home. And so it's a good yin and yang for us because it's either everyone's going to screw us over all the time or we're not going to know anyone ever again, like ever. But it's tough. It's a tough one, I sit with it so much because of my self-awareness. I have to understand what do I have to be accountable for also in the friction or the conflict that me and somebody else is having. So I sit with that a lot too. And I'm very hard on myself. It does take me a while before I finally say no. But when I do, it's like a breakup and it's heartbreaking. And, I live with anxiety. I talk about it all the time. And those are the things that make me anxious is I've always been someone that just wants everyone to like me, and
which is very common.
It's so hard, and it's hard to not give a shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. But it's hard. It is. It's hard not to, and I know that I would be in a happier place if I didn't. But I care too much, and I know that's a little bit of sometimes I care too much about who I'm affecting that it prevents me from just like full speed ahead and just like getting what I want. And I know a lot of people act that way, and more power to them. And I have to sit back and realize that's just not me, though. you know. I am the person that wants to make sure everyone's taken care of and everyone's happy. And but yeah, it's a tough thing, but that's something I've been learning. That's been a big motto of mine is, you know, releasing toxic relationships, getting rid of things that are not, that don't make me feel good, including Instagram. You know, if I'm following somebody that, and maybe it's my own issue, it's always your thing, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm following somebody that I don't feel, that's not making me feel good, there's a fine line between envy and inspiration. And if I am even anywhere near the envy part and I don't feel good about myself, I just like unfollow. Yeah, like
you don't need to see.
no,
need to see
why?
that. Yeah.
No, why am I going to do that to myself? I'm hard on myself as it is already. So, yeah, it is it's a process, and I'm still learning how to do that. And I just told you a second ago that my new thing is, you know, is disconnecting and letting go. You know, it's like trying to disconnect from thoughts and people and things and items and ideas, because it's so hard to be in the present and so hard to, you know, flow into the direction that you're supposed to go when you're just always like, you know, trying to like attach yourself to things. So yeah.
Okay, so those are friendships, but what about when conflicts arise in your marriage?
Yes.
I remember you telling me that, I mean, you've always been very good at taking responsibility for things. I've never heard you blame Kevin for anything, saying things like, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. It's always very fair and very neutral. Like 7 years in, we hit a rough patch and I was doing a lot of personal growth and doing everything you could.
Absolutely. It was that 7-year itch is real. And it hit in a weird time for me too, because, you know, Kaden was just like a year old. In hindsight, I realized that, and then also my own traumas that I've had my whole life, you know, of holding everything in. And I mean, I think I definitely was suffering from postpartum. It wasn't like I was diagnosed with it, but clearly I can see that it was part of it. So it was me, and then it was a midpoint when you were bringing me on to do makeup and everything like that. It was literally during that time. That point was kind of like helping me go over. Prior to that, I was confused what I was going to do with my life because I wanted to be a musician and that's all I ever wanted to be. Then I was pregnant, and then I was beating myself up for not losing the weight quick enough to get back on stage. And it was just so hard to know that I'm taking care of my kid, my husband, and still trying to take care of myself. And, you know, am I being selfish about doing that? Do I need to just spend this time with my child? It was a very difficult time. During that time, I saw my first therapist. I saw my first life coach. I was kind of just trying to do everything and anything to get out of that space. I didn't want to be next to him or near him, and he was so patient. He was so patient. And I understand why, because I would flip. I mean, I had like at least a monthly meltdown, and I was never like that. You know, I'm not a big crier, but, you know, I would have major meltdowns. I mean, obviously I knew that something was wrong, and he was patient through it, really, really patient through it. And he supported me when I was seeing a life coach and a therapist at the same time.
No, that's great.
You know, and
that combo is great.
Yeah, and the one thing Kevin and I have never had issues is communicating how we feel about things that is not working out through things. We're not always super verbal with each other. I think I've told you that too. We're not always, like, we don't sit there and try to solve all the world's problems. And we don't sit there and, you know, as a philosophy major, I do like talking that kind of shit, like, you know, stupid stuff. But, you know, that's not necessarily him. And so there's a lot of quiet moments. There's a lot of, you know, and I used to press him before, and he would get nervous if I did have this verbal connection with people, or especially if it was a guy, or you get so paranoid, like, oh my God, that's what you want. And I realized, you know, like I said, in the beginning of even the friendships, and not like realizing that you can have so many soulmates, you know, that kind of feed into every parts of you, and you cannot. There's no way that you can put it all on one person, and you will never find that person, I will tell you right now. So, you know, I had to really sit back and like, what are my priorities? what are the things that I really want? What is it that I really wanted out of the relationship? And the number one was the respect, the consideration, and a different kind of love. And nobody's given me that except for him. Like, nobody. So if I want to talk about why the stars are aligned in a certain way, I can talk to my girlfriend. I don't need to talk to him about that, you know?
Yes, I remember when you told me that. That was such a valuable piece of advice.
Yeah.
Because actually, Pete and I have a similar dynamic in that way, where we don't talk a lot.
Yeah.
Like, we have conversation, but it's not like the bouncy conversation that I have with some of my girlfriends where, and you're like so inspired and it's bouncing back and forth.
Yes.
But that's okay.
Yes.
And you said that that's okay, that you said Kevin loves me to death.
Yes.
And that when it comes down to long-term relationships, that just showing up, and his energy also is directed towards you. I always notice that, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
Like, if we're in a room and he shows up, he sees you, he beelines it across the room to acknowledge you.
Yeah. I play with a lot of, go back and forth with the word luck. And because obviously we all want to say that, if we set ourselves up to what we want to be and who we want to be out there, then, you'll find there's a lot of that has to happen, yes. But a lot of it is luck as well, too. I do believe in energy, and I believe when I was ready, I had it. I didn't think it was him at first because he was young.
Is he younger than you?
Yeah, by 2 years.
Okay.
So I met him when he was 26.
Okay.
And I was 28. Yeah, I was almost 29. So I was like, oh, that kid. You know, when you're that old, you're like, oh, that kid. Like, he's not going to get it. He's not going to know what he wants. And, anything like that. I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt in the beginning. But he showed up. He really showed up. There was, we talk about it a lot. He had really massive jealousy issues and that I didn't see until a few months in. And I was like, whoa, we either have to work on this because I'm not like that. Or this is not going to work out. And we worked on it. And I met him to where he needed it as well. And he did really well, to the point that I was like, okay, that guy was just talking to me right now. Why don't you care? He's like, I care. I just hold it in. I just don't want to be that guy. So yeah, those kind of things that even one of my boundaries that nobody believes because he's so affectionate, but he didn't want to do PDA. He was like, so like, I'm not into PDA. And I was like, not going to fly. I love it.
Yeah.
It shows me that you're proud of that to be next to me and shows everyone else that you're not with anyone else but me. You know? So that's what I needed. I mean, he got it over that really, really fast. But he said that. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that, because by the time I met you guys, you've always been very affectionate.
Oh yeah, no, that was like within the first couple weeks that he was telling me that, and I was like, no, not gonna fly. That was like another one. That was like part of it too, and we still have to do those now. We're, like I said, when I was complicit about just everything and cultures and jokes and, a lot of inappropriate stuff, like those things from before that I was like, thought was so funny because that's just like guy talk. Cause I'm like, I don't like that. I don't think that's cool anymore. And so now he's always like, you just don't think I'm funny anymore. I think you're funny-ish.
It's funny how things change.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so in the beginning, you guys were both into partying.
Oh, yeah.
You were really good in keeping up with him, too.
Oh, yeah.
I always, when I watch you guys, I'm like, gosh, I can never do what Leslie
does. Oh, dude, no, I mean, he didn't have a curfew. He didn't have we didn't have like, oh, you got to make sure you call me before, if you're going to be out late. Because we were together all the time. And I lasted with the boys. I hung out with the boys. I always did that. So when I got pregnant, that was like our biggest issue that we had, is that he would be out. I was like, and I'd be out until like as much as I can. Then I'd go home, and then he wouldn't come home till like 4 or 5 in the morning with no phone call. And I was like, but he wasn't used to it. He was like, you know where I am, you know who I'm with, and I did. But at that point, I'm just like, you got to still be considerate to me because I'm freaking home baking your child. And yes, it's not fair. You get to be out, so at least acknowledge that I'm home to, kind of those kinds of ordeals. And that was a rough one. I always said that God could not have put the two most irresponsible people together when it came to finances or responsibilities. I mean, we were so bad. I'm like, who's going to do it? I don't know. I don't care. And then we had a Kaden. And then I was like, I guess it's going to be me. So I felt like, I ended up having to grow up, and he got to still play, and I had to take care of the finances and take care of the kid stuff and you know what I mean, kind of doing that whole thing. And in the process, I was like, I ended up becoming really boring.
Yeah, was that a hard time? I mean, that's a huge adjustment.
Yeah,
right after having a kid, and then you're
but you know what? For some reason, it just clicked with me. As soon as Kaden was born, it wasn't like an overnight thing at all, but I slowly was like, okay, there's a lot of important things I need to know. I need to happen in our life, and then also what I want to teach this child, and I better get it together now. So that's kind of when I started becoming more grown up, in my mid-30s. But it was, including, I wasn't into politics or activism before. Like, I could give two shits, but then we're talking about it now. It's so prevalent what we're talking about now and what's happening with this movement, and talking about colonial mentality and what it's like, racism and whatnot. And while I was pregnant, my parents were like, I hope your baby turns out white, kind of stuff like that. Like, I hope he really looks white. I'm like, that might be tough because I'm not. But but this is the world that we live in their generation of how they felt that things would be accepted or why they would be accepted. And that baby came out really Asian looking, and I was like, I've got some work to do because I don't want him to feel less than anything. I don't want him to feel less than, I want him to be proud of who he is as a Mexican, Filipino American, and so that's kind of the work I had to do. And I don't, because Kevin is always, he doesn't want me to always talk about those kinds of things to him, and as not that they don't exist, but because he doesn't want them to that's the only thing to exist. But I feel completely different about it. So that was a little bit of a, adjustment to in our relationship of how our views, because we'd always been on the same side. We said from the beginning we were going to raise him together and we were going to be a team. No decision is going to be, done before the other one. So we didn't fight a lot about that kind of stuff. But definitely when these kinds of things arose, that was a big deal too.
Are you more accepting of each other? Like, oh, she's gonna, do the political thing, and she has her friends that she likes to talk to about that. And do you give him the space to do him?
Absolutely. And I respect how much he wants to give and how much he wants to talk about when it comes to those kinds of things. But at the same time, because we started this company and we really talked about the voices that we wanted to share and the stories that we wanted to tell and what we actually stood for, and it's the unheard voices, it's the people that are looked through, it's the unrepresented communities that have stories to tell that are not mainstream, and I think since we've been on, all three of us met with my sister, had been on board with this company and our ideals, it definitely has brought him on a different level of importance and priority in those matters that that have meant so much to my sister and I. So he's showing up for that too, and it's not like I'm forcing him to. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, he's going to show up to everything I do, because that's not always the reality of people's relationships and situations. But of course, I'm happy where it is and where we are right now.
Okay,
yeah,
that's awesome. So how many different? I feel like there's been more than 2 stages in your marriage, right? Like, okay, so it was the party stage, pre-Kaden, young Kaden.
Young Kaden, we were still partying.
Yeah, that's when I met you. Yeah, I met you when you were pregnant.
Still partying.
Yeah, you were still partying. That's when I was very impressed at your energy.
That I'm still out.
And that Kaden would be out with us. I liked that so much.
Yeah.
That he was fully integrated into you guys' lives in a very healthy way. He's been friends with all of us since he was born.
Yeah.
Not the kid. he's friends. And I remember when my sister met him, I don't know how old he was, like 4 or 5.
In New York, he was 4.
Okay, and she tried to talk to him like a kid, like baby talk, and he did not respond to it. He looked at her like, "Why are you talking to me like that?"
I know. Well, because the Kaden's always been a little mature, but I feel like it was fun because it's cute to see little kids talk adult. But now that he's a preteen, his friends still have their voices still haven't dropped. And now he actually looks as old as he can talk. And so I feel like it backfired on me. I feel like, like his maturity happened so fast that I didn't get to keep him as a kid long enough. This is my year of struggle now with Kaden it was the biggest difference the biggest change with any stage that he's gone through, because as you're seeing your niece and nephew grow, you're seeing from baby to toddler, from toddler to little kid, and then that little kid lasts for a while, and it lasted I want to say at least until last year for sure. That was just a year ago when he was still 11 years old, and then all of a sudden it was like the eye rolls, and he promised me when he was a kid, I would always say, "Oh my God, you're gonna go through preteen angst, and then and then you're not gonna love me." Where he's like, "I don't think that's gonna happen, Mom. And I really don't." And then all of a sudden it happened. He was like, "Well, you know what though? But we recognized it." And I told him, because when he gets frustrated or upset, I tell him. We had a conversation one time. I'm like, "You feel it, don't you?" He's like, "I do." It's like when he wasn't upset, and I said, "You feel that overwhelming anger that you can't control, can you?" And he was like, "I do." And I said, "You know what? Just recognize it and know that it's there, so that when we're trying to talk to each other, we're not trying to. I'm not trying to scold you over than I should, and you're not trying to talk back at me. When you feel that anger, and we just, as long as we recognize each other, we're both learning. I'm still like, I lose my shit, but I apologize. I did that yesterday. I was so frustrated. I was so stressed out, and he wasn't moving fast enough, and I lost my shit. And then while we were walking, I could tell he was so upset at me, and I said, I'm so sorry, and he's like, "It's okay." And what I've learned about being able to do that with my son is that in return he does it with me. If he snaps or he does something, he'll sit back, he'll take a breather, he'll come back, and he'll apologize. And I'm really proud about him when something like that, especially during this stage in his life too.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
He's 13. 12.
Yeah, he's just not 12 and a half yet. He turned 12 the end of February. So, yeah, I know. He's still a baby.
Yeah. Oh, baby with the little mustache coming in.
I hate it. I like the hair. He's so proud he doesn't have hair under his armpit. He's going to hate me for telling me that right now. He's so proud he doesn't have it yet because he doesn't want it there yet. And I'm like, dude, you think I want it there? I don't want it there. I don't want you to get any of that stuff, I know.
That's so funny. I'm thinking, what else can we talk about with boundaries? What's on my mind? Remember the time we talked about anal sex? Do you
She's
remember?
Going there.
Do you remember?
I mean, it's remind me.
Well, talking about boundaries. Well, we were on a girls' trip.
Yes.
We were, I think, in Palm Springs.
Yes.
Talking about anal sex and how it hurts. You said it hurts.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, if you want to have anal sex with me, let me put a baby carrot in your dick hole.
I know. Did I say that?
You just say that.
Oh, see, maybe I am still funny.
Kevin will be proud of that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, by the way. Yes. I know Kevin will always tease about because that, that's how I got him to ask him to marry me so fast. It was like a bottle of whiskey and an anal sex. So there you go, ladies. There you have it. Oh, my God.
And, I mean, I can't believe. Okay, so you guys got engaged so fast.
Yes.
You got married. I remember you said that you had drank so much the night before your wedding that the hotel receptionist called and had to wake you up.
Yes, because we were doing a sunset wedding. This was after we were legally married in San Francisco on Valentine's Day. And then a couple months, when we finally told my parents that what we did they knew that our dream wedding was to get married in Costa Rica, but we didn't want to couldn't afford that. We didn't want to put them out for something like that, and they were like, let's make it happen. So by May we set it up. We did it really set it up super fast. And got this resort. And it was one of those incidents where, when somebody starts talking about a place and then all of a sudden that place gets brought up by like 10 other people. And that was this resort called Flor Blanca over in Costa Rica. And 4 people within a span of 2 or 3 weeks had told us about this place. So this is where we set it all up. We found a weekend that they were free. And there was 10 of us, including my parents and us and, my sister and my best friend and his 2 best friends and their wives. We all met there. And so it was the morning of the wedding. I was drinking. I know exactly what I was drinking. I was in the pool drinking espresso martinis. And I probably had 11 that morning.
Oh, my gosh.
My mom at one point, she was like, Leslie, why don't you put some sunscreen on? And I was like, I never wear sunscreen. Why would I wear not thinking that we're like right next to the equator and not thinking anything at all. So I didn't. Next thing I know, the phone rings. I'm in the hotel room naked, and I pick up the phone and I say hello, and they say, this is your wake-up call. And I'm like, for what? And they're like, your wedding? And so I got up really fast, looked in the mirror, and I was bright red. It was the first time I burned in my life.
Oh, my gosh.
And ever since then, I burn all the time now. So I have to wear sunscreen or else I'll burn. But never burned before that ever in my life. Kevin, during that whole fiasco of us getting drunk in the morning time, he decided to do the dolphin dive.
What's that?
Did you ever see The Animal? With Rob Schneider, and he they had to give him animal parts for I don't know.
I know that movie, but I've never seen it.
Yes, it's a stupid movie, but we thought it was so funny. So there's this one scene where he runs up and he goes and he and then you dive in with you kind of do that. So he did that in the shallow end. We have wedding photos with me bright red, and and he's got like a bald patch from hitting his head.
God.
Hitting his head at the bottom of the swimming pool. So, and that was prior to us knowing any really amazing, cool wedding photographers. Right. There's one regret. I don't like to regret anything in my life, so I don't know if it's a regret. It's I wish I could have, and that one was that I wish that I hired a professional photographer during that wedding. But we were like, I don't care. We already did it. We just want to have fun. We just want to hang out. So even the resort owner, she said that I was the easiest bride she ever had because she would like email me stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, that's totally fine. I never thought I was going to get married. I never thought I was going to I never imagined my wedding. I never imagined my wedding dress. I never imagined any of that. I literally thought I was going to be the rich aunt with a turban and the long cigar, or cigarette, like smoking and giving all my nieces and nephews like cash and money. Like, that's who I thought I wanted to be at least. So when I met him and I knew it, and I knew that I wanted to marry him, it was also very new for me too. And so that was exciting.
Well, looping back to friendships, I forgot to ask. So you had a lot of guy friends. You still have a lot of guy friends, and you guys worked through that. Did you have jealousy issues with him being friends with females or any of his co-stars?
No, because part of it for me was my whole thing about jealousy and about stressing about those kind of things in your relationship. I used to say this before I got married. I say it still now, and everybody thinks, like, why would you say it that way? I believe in that if somebody is cheating on you, if you don't know, you don't know. So unless you know, you don't know. And so I'm not a stupid girl, so it's not like I'm trying to pretend I don't know. But if somebody's treating you amazing, if they're being honest with you, if they're considerate with their time, with who you are, with how they treat you, there's no reason for me to assume that he's doing anything unless he gives me a reason to, So I don't want to live my life, basically, I'm saying I don't want to live my life worried that he's going to cheat on me. Because if it happens, then we'll deal with it then. I'm not stupid enough to think that he could never, even to this day. I'm not, I hope that doesn't happen. But it would be ridiculous for me to say, oh my God, my husband will never ever cheat on me. Like that's just not how I live. I don't live that way at all. So no, but but those are the rules for him. Don't make me look stupid. That was a big thing. Don't make me look stupid. You know, if you are trying to hook up with a girl and they know we're married, and you know, that's going to make me look stupid. You know, I mean, those kinds of ordeals. Don't flirt with somebody, with your friends, because that's going to make me look stupid. You know, like those are the kind of rules that I'm like, and he's been so good about introducing me to, if he has love scenes, if he has kissing scenes, if he has intimate scenes, you know, introducing me to everybody. My rule is I don't watch it in person. I'll watch it on TV. I'll watch it even on the screen, you know, like over at Video Village.
Yeah.
I'll watch it because then it's not real. But if I'm seeing it, like I'm seeing him doing it with my eyes, I don't want to see that. It's stupid. There's no reason for me to see that. But there's also no reason for me to question it too, as long as he's doing his part and keeping me, you know, keeping me confident in his actions.
Yeah, and he's always had so much respect for you.
Absolutely.
Both you guys, mutual respect.
Yeah.
And I think you set the tone for that, I think. Do you think?
I would like to feel like I did. I like to feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that mutual respect seems like it's one of the keys to a healthy long-term relationship or marriage. What would you say are other components that have to be in place?
My number one, when anybody asks me, what's the secret? It's, I know a lot of people say trust and love. And for me, it's consideration. It's 100% consideration. If your partner is really considerate for you, you get the attention that you want when he or she meets that consideration for you. You know, that shows that consideration to you, and feeling that somebody is thinking of me and showing me myself that I'm thinking of them. You know, in every aspect of our lives, I think, and considering them in every decision. In anything, in the love, the trust shows up, the love shows up, all of it shows up within that consideration. So that's a big word for me when it comes to our relationship.
Okay, that's a good one. Consideration. And then for single women who are looking to find their life partner right now and they're dating, what's your number one piece of advice of how to show up?
For me is know your worth. If you don't know it, figure it out first. Because if you don't know what you are worth, then the other person will figure it out for you, which may not be what you think or what you want. So that's actually a huge one, even for people who are in relationships that aren't necessarily that they're confused about. If you know your worth, you'll know, and that's something that I had always learned. I'd never been, I've been in a relationship where the guy came up and was just like, my ex came back and I'm just a little confused. Can you give me time? No, because I know I'm worth being number one at least.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
remember you said that about the guy before Kevin.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're not sure and you're between two girls, go
down. Yeah.
If you're not sure.
There's
not going to be me.
No, if it's not me, then I don't want it. So yeah, that's the biggest one.
Yeah, and you have that now. Kevin's all about you.
And by the way, knowing your worth is lifelong.
Yes.
In every aspect, right? Relationships, it might be a little easier to know your worth than it is to know your worth in anything else. I mean, we can go on and on talk about that stuff in a different time.
Yeah. Well, it's different for everyone, because I felt like the difference between me and you, I felt like you were always really good with relationships, intimate relationships. You knew your worth there when I met you, but I did not know my worth. But I was always...
I would have never thought that. Seeing your experience and watching your growth in relationships and everything has been so amazing, because, like we always say, we always assume something about other people, and I would have never in a million years. Like, I always looked at you as like confident and... Yeah, just always.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it was definitely a journey. But it was weird because a lot of people have said that to me, because I was confident in some areas of my life, like business, those kind of things. So it was funny when I would get business questions or when creatives would ask, like, how do you put yourself out there? Or, like, oh, like, they didn't hire me. And they'd be like butthurt about it. And I just thought it was so weird because it didn't register with me. I'm like... That means nothing about you. That means nothing about you. So I wanted to feel that way with intimate relationships. And that's where I had to do the work.
Right.
Self-worth there.
Oh, yeah. You've always been an inspiration to me in all of it, even your relationships. But I didn't know those things in the relationships too. Right?
Oh, yeah. I hid it a bit. I mean, I didn't broadcast it to the world.
Yeah.
Like how shitty I felt and like my lack of confidence in that area at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always a work in progress. But thank you so much for coming and sharing and being very real and authentic about, what a healthy marriage entails. It's not all perfect Instagram photos and butterflies.
And it's not, here's the thing too, though, is that the hardest thing that anyone can ever do, or the worst thing anyone can ever do, is compare your relationships to other people's relationships. I think the work starts with yourself, and then coming out and coming together, because everything that we can never talk, we can talk till we're blue in the face about our experiences, but it will never be anybody else's. And so I definitely hope that people get out of any of all of this is to really understand what you want out of your relationships and find a way to get that. Yeah, I love what you and you and Mark always talk about. You guys always talk about boundaries too, and I think it's incredible, and I love it. I think because I feel like it all starts there. It definitely starts there.
Yeah, and Mark Groves is a relationship coach. He's kind of famous if you don't know.
Yeah.
But we like to talk about those things.
I love it.
And again, thank you so much for being such a great example and
you.
teaching, just inspiring, just by showing. You didn't even have to say anything to me. I just watched what you did and how you showed up.
You're so sweet. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.